Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're sitting in the world, and welcome to another in a series of Eclipse webinars on customer experience. Today, we're here to talk about ChatGPT, AI tools, and whether they can provide you tricks or treats. We're having both out in the marketplace. We're going to have a very fun conversation about this today. In doing so, I've got two amazing guests with me, Vijay Shankar from Unifor and Matt Dixon from Team Eclipse here. Matt, if you don't mind jumping in, telling us a little bit about yourself, and then Vijay do the same.
Sure, absolutely. So as Dave mentioned, I'm with Team Eclipse. Prior to joining Team Eclipse, though, I was running an organization within Stericycle that was focused on patient engagement. So we were powering parts of the patient engagement lifecycle for about 8 of the top 10 health systems in the country, 300,000 patient interactions a day across 3 SaaS platforms, and our contact center that was doing about 2 million calls a year. So looking forward to bringing some of that experience here and bringing that forward to our participants today.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Matt, for looking forward to having this conversation with you and Dave. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today's webinar on ChatGPT, spooky or treat, whatever the title is. But I'm not dressed in the Halloween costume like Dave is, but we'll leave it accordingly. So, quick introduction about myself. Vijay Shankar. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing here at Unifor. Unifor is an enterprise, AI native enterprise class company, which really focuses on helping our customers deliver 3 things. Deliver real-time guidance for all of their conversations, whether it's through the IVAs, IVRs, or the agent assist. It's about automating manual processes within the contact center. And the last thing is about getting actionable insights to really help improve the customer experience and also the agent experience. So Unifor is based in Palo Alto. We provide a platform which uses a variety of AI services and is cloud first, really focusing on conversational AI, generative AI, and really a couple of newer forms of AI, really trying to understand the emotion of conversations and also automating the knowledge management systems with knowledge AI. So that's kind of a quick summary. We are based in Palo Alto. We have some large enterprise customers across the world, across all the different industries, and yeah, excited to share some insights from our perspective.
Excellent. And welcome again to everybody who's joined us today. There'll be time for Q&A at the end, and please submit questions today into the chat. We'll try to answer them either in real time or at the end when we're making space for that. I'm Dave Dyson. I'm the founder of Eclipse. I started it 14 years ago and change here in Chicago with the simple premise that I believe communication is the most important thing that human beings do. And I believe it's the most important thing businesses do. And so the tools we use, the technology we use should all be to enable and engender better communication amongst peers and coworkers, with friends and loved ones. And most importantly, from a business perspective, how we communicate with our customers and our clients. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, particularly this brave new era we've entered of using automation, AI, GPT style tools to create a better experience. The thing you're going to hear myself and Matt and Vijay by extension say, technology only exists to make the human communication go better. That's where we're at in this conversation. It's not about replacing all of the human beings with technology. It's about making the humans more human, more available, solving the bigger and more complex problems. And we're gonna touch on a ton of fun stuff today. But again, please ask questions. We'll keep an eye on the chat here and make sure we're getting everything addressed to the best of our ability. I am besides the guy who definitely thought he heard let's all wear Halloween costumes for the Halloween webinar. I'm not sure where the miss was there for a guy who values communication this much. I'm excited to be here today because this is a topic that deserves a lot of exploration. The right time to do something could be today, could be tomorrow, but the time for inaction is over. And so if you're here today, it's probably because you're on the precipice of starting to think about what should I be doing in my environment to use the tools, to use the automation, to make a richer and fuller customer experience. And by the moderator's code of ethics, I am obligated to start us off with some statistics here. And we're gonna dig in particular into Forrester's annual customer experience survey, because it's one of the biggest and richest. It has almost 100,000 consumers surveyed across all sorts of brands that they interact with. Interesting trend here. US brands, US-based brands have struggled to deliver great customer service. And for the second year in a row, this is unprecedented, gang. Customer service overall, the experience that people feel when they're interacting with the brand has dropped for the second year in a row. This has never happened before. Great customer experience, it hits the mark on a couple of things: ease of use, effectiveness, emotion, empathy, wrapped inside of emotion. And people are not feeling that, as evidenced by the scores dropping. The drop in 2022 that consumers are reporting is mostly based on that drop in empathy and emotion. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about how can AI, how can machines help us be more empathetic and emotive. It's counterintuitive to think that way, but we're seeing some really good use case examples. The best brands, the ones that are elite, the ones that evoke really happy feelings in their consumers, they're averaging 29 positive emotions per engagement and interaction. Feeling happy, feeling valued, feeling appreciated. This is the way the consumers are talking about these brands. For each negative emotion, like frustration or annoyance or agitation. This is a good one. 80% of business leaders are listing, and this is CEOs of big companies. They're saying CX, customer service, customer experience, is the number one priority in their organization. And yet the statistics are telling us that even if this is being focused on, it's not being accomplished well. The number of US-based companies whose customers who report themselves as customer obsessed, it rose by 3 percentage points, and it's still single digit. So people who say customer obsession is why we get out of bed every day is sitting at about 8% right now. I mentioned that CEOs, that leaders are at about an 80% clip on we want CX, customer experience, to be the thing that drives us. 8% of their customers agree. And so we're going to jump off from here. I'm going to kick it to you, VJ. What's going on? So business leaders are saying this is the thing. This is the place where we're investing our time, our resources, our money. What's not clicking? What's not going well? Why is it that the consumers are not feeling this push towards customer experience?
So that's a great survey you talked about and all the different stats. So a couple of things. I think it's consistent with what we have been seeing. There's always been it's in terms of businesses think and say that customer experience is their number one strategic imperative, but at the end, consumers are really not experiencing the results as they've been promised. I would say that the reasons for these is basically twofold. One is there's an increase in expectation from a consumer standpoint. I think it's really been driven by our experience as consumers with the different brands, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon, whether it's all the different new brands we deal with, and also the iPhone, I would say, to the big part, which has been an enabler of driving into this experience era. I think that's number one. Number two is, I would say, so when we are experiencing these kind of positive experiences, when we react with brands such as these, what I just mentioned, we expect the same from the other brands we talk about, whether it's a bank, whether it's a travel company, whether it's an airline, whether it's a telecom company, and so forth. And sometimes the experience there leaves a lot to be desired. But I should say the companies are getting better with incorporation of these technologies. It's not like it's still like the early 2000s or mid 2000s where it was not really as good and it was all primarily through the phone. So the second reason why I think from a business standpoint, it is really, there has been, I would say, a gap in the expectations between the consumer and the business is, I would say, lack of the enterprise context. It is just not about putting in all the different technologies and then expecting that to really work for your environment. It's about truly understanding what's going on in your contact center, what's really happening. Do you have visibility into how you have deployed the systems? Do you have the analytics to clearly understand if the systems are working or not? And then using it to optimize what's going forward. So I think it starts there. So I don't think businesses have that level of insights into what's truly happening. It's just trying to deploy a system and expecting that to fit, while not really changing the fundamental issues within the enterprise as far as communications are concerned, and not having the visibility into that. So number one, what I'm trying to say is it's truly understanding the enterprise context, understanding how your data is performing. Do you have the right data to drive the right experience, what you need? And then starting slow. It's not about trying to do everything at one shot. Maybe just start with the basic guidance. Do you have the right knowledge management systems with dynamically updated information, so your consumers actually have the most relevant information, whether it's through chatbots or even when your agents have the most relevant information when they're dealing with customer queries on the phone or the chat. So I think it starts there and then building off of that.
And we're gonna in a second here get into it, because you just tied into something you said in your introduction about actionable insights in the data. We're creating a lot of data. How are we finding needles in those haystacks? But Matt, do you have anything to add? Like again, this trend, and I'll throw one more stat on here. 78.5% of chief marketing officers agree that amazing customer experience provides a powerful competitive advantage to their company. If we all know it, why are very few getting it right?
Yeah, I think first I wanted to mention that my costume, there was a mistake. I was supposed to be a brontosaurus, but I got bronchitis instead. I don't know where I go to Amazon to return that costume. So apologies today if I have to take a pause here or cough or get a quick drink. But VJ hit on some powerful topics there. Some of it I think is tactical. The reality is there's still staffing issues, right? Which creates long holds, which creates frustration. A lot of agents are newer. So certainly that's part of that. And we have to focus on how we retain agents better, how we empower new agents better so that they can hit the ground running a little bit better. But I think VJ hit on probably one of the key things, and that the bar is higher than it's ever been. There's no doubt about that. When I first started in my CX journey, all you had to do was answer the phone quickly, and your agents had to be nice. And if you could do those two things, you were doing pretty well, right? But now all of a sudden, we got to support people across social, SMS, bots, voice. The metaverse maybe is next. I don't know, right? You may have agents with VR goggles strapped on, providing support in the metaverse. And all, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, airlines, for example, they didn't have apps. So when people called, it was, hey, can you help me get from A to B? Now it's like, hey, I can't do this in your app, or I can't figure this out on your website, right? So more and more things are being added to the pile. Certainly, one of the things that VJ noted is you're competing against these digitally native companies. So they have baked into from day one into all of their systems and processes. They've thought about how to get that data, which VJ hit the nail on the head there. That is the key, how to get that data throughout their organization, how to use that to generate insights, how to get that to their agents. Because the reality is we've gone from multi-channel, right, to omni-channel, where we can have that conversation move throughout different channels without losing our place. But now what do customers want? They want proactive, timely, and personalized communication. So now we have to go from a reactive to a proactive approach. We see that with Amazon. I know where my thing is, right? If my shipping's been delayed, they tell me, which, by the way, the best route to call deflection is proactive communication. People need to understand that better. But many of the people trying to replicate that experience, they don't have the systems in place to do it. They don't have APIs, webhooks, et cetera, all of the ways to get their agents the right information. There are ways to address that, like through robotic process automation, that helps bridge some of that gap. Actually, look last night at what I'd say is legacy CX. So I tried to figure out how many people are still using mainframes, because we know that a lot of our customers are. And here's what my research found out. 44 of the top 50 banks, 10 of the top insurers, and 23 of the 25 largest US retailers are still using mainframes. I'm going to guess that there's not a single mainframe running customer experience for any part in Amazon. So it's not that you can't do these things if you have mainframes, but the reality is it's a little bit more of an uphill battle for people who are trying to go from those types of systems to providing this type of service. I'd say the other thing, oh, go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry, or VJ.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually come back around to that thought of, you know, where do you start? Because I think that's something we're gonna be touching on a lot here too. This conversation has gotten big. It's become overwhelming, and there's a lot of noise right now.
Yep.
So I want to get to both of you in a second on that fact of what do I do? Is there small ways to get started? Do I have to take the dynamite plunger and blow up my entire environment, Matt? Or is this something where I can start in small bite-sized places that make logical sense that can give me some early wins and then maybe lead to the next thing? It's a conversation of what's the roadmap to getting from where I am today. You know, sitting on maybe an old AS400 where my associates are, you know, tabbing across a green screen to world-class customer experience. Like what's the path there? Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're okay. Certainly, I think, a big part of the path is, and I think this is where people potentially get it wrong. You're right, you don't have to do everything at once, but you have to think about the entirety of that journey up front. So that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong is they go through that process and say, here's something we can automate, or here's a system we can take this part of the customer journey and infuse AI in, but they're not thinking about that holistically and how it goes through the process. They're doing the things that are easy as opposed to maybe the things that are mostly impactful to the customer, right? How it's super easy for us to spin up a chat bot, or it's super easy for us to automate this part of our process, but those aren't typically the things that are creating those positive emotions that we talked about, that are the foundation to what the world-class companies around customer experience are doing. So you got to plan for it all and think through it all up front, but certainly you can then take it into digestible chunks, where what we're seeing is the opposite today. People are looking for the easy places to get quick wins and not understanding how that feeds into a larger vision.
BJ, you care to add on that? Is that from a Unifor perspective make sense? Are you seeing like a common entry point that maybe leads to roadmap, or are you seeing people who want to solve that one easy problem or some combination thereof? What makes the most sense for the clients to do?
Yeah, so I think the overall recommendation always is to start gradually and then get into more complex transactions. From a Unifor perspective, what we always recommend is let's truly understand what's happening in your enterprise first. Or where exactly is your key business objective in terms of your business outcome you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to hit a couple of different angles out here. So we have had customers who say that, hey, they would really want to solve initially on the agent assist side, on the agent side, because that's one area which has really been neglected. So we offer, a couple of option ways. We have had customers where they solve a simple use case, as simple as just using AI and technology to automate what's called agent after call work, really the call summaries and call disposition. Now agents are, using manual processes and manually entering notes and manually entering the summaries. We just noticed that just solving that with technology today, which is already available with AI, can really help improve the efficiencies and accuracies, which in turn drives a much better agent performance. I think that is a simple use case we have solved. On the customer assist side, on the self-service side, again, it's about truly understanding what you want to automate, how much more automation you need to help lower the costs of customer service. And truly understanding what's happening in your contact center, the data capture. I think that's really what helps drive what we want to do. So I think I gave a couple of examples, but that's kind of the way we are thinking about it, is really partnering with our companies and customers to help build the ideal AI blueprint, as we would call. And that starts with understanding what's happening within the environment and then building the roadmap from there based on what the company's business outcomes are.
And let me, if I could, Dave, because VJ said something I think is really important, and I think it's one of the best use cases for generative AI today. He talked about the after call work, the after call notes. The other thing that does, though, is it creates a virtuous cycle. So think about how one agent, if they've got great notes that talked about what that conversation was, the whys behind that conversation, recording both sides of that conversation, what the agent said and what the customer said, The next time an agent comes in to service that customer, now we've primed them for that personalization. We've primed them to create positive emotion. So I think that even though it seems simple, because a lot of people think of it more simplistically around, hey, we're going to save our agents time. What it really does is power really this virtuous loop where people are going to pick up for that next conversation, and it's going to be even more impactful. The other thing I would say there too is a lot of what's being done around generative AI and that after call work notes is it's tracking commitments that were made. There's nothing more frustrating than an agent saying, hey, I'm going to send you a coupon for that. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I'll send you this, or I'm going to do this for you. And then it doesn't happen. So that's another really big, powerful use for generative AI is creating and tracking those commitments. And then the good news here is we talked about starting small. Maybe it is just tracking those commitments, telling the agent, don't forget you said you were going to do A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. The next step of that is how do we open up the systems that start to do that automatically? Oh, I said I was going to send you a coupon. Great. Don't worry, agent, that's handled for you. That commitment was tracked. So a couple extra things I wanted to add there on the after call notes, because that's a great place to start, and it's a very impactful place to start.
And I think just Dave, just to build on what Matt said, I do want to, before we go to the next topic, I think this is a critical point. What Matt said is really focusing on, it is just not one technology which helps solve all of your problems. So what Matt just mentioned, generative AI really helping with the after call summarization. And, we have conversational AI, which can provide next best action. It's about identifying, agent promises and then leveraging your built-in process automation tools. It could be RPA, it could be whatever process automation you have to ensure we fulfill the promise. So we just talked about merging a couple of different or 3 different technologies over here to help achieve your business outcome. I think that's important. It is just not, getting sucked into this buzz of, oh, generative AI is going to solve all the problems. No, it is working with the right model based on the right use case to help you solve the right problems.
And in the same vein of like what I think qualifies in the great places to start category, Matt touched on one of the biggest problems everybody who runs a center is having: staffing, training, retention, getting agents from sort of a training state to they're co-piloting along with the experienced agent to being fully productive. And you mentioned agent assist, Vijay. So if you can maybe just touch on that one simple but really profoundly important use case of how do we get people into the training cycle, through it a little bit quicker, servicing customers more quickly, and then using tools like Agent Assist to make sure that on day one, they're not just functional, but they're a good agent on day one because the tools are helping engender their performance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think agent assist is a huge area for additional transformation. Normally, contact centers, and I've been in the contact center space since mid 2000s, so it's about nearly 2 decades of being in the contact center, working for different companies which service the contact center. Whenever there is transformation in the contact center, it's always happened on the self-service side. So, oh, let's go with more natural language. Let's increase the self-service automation rates. Let's lower the costs of customer service, and so forth. So the area which has been obviously neglected to the most part is agent assist on the agent side, the agent transformation technologies. I think here is where companies can really leverage the power of generative AI or conversational AI to really help transform the agent experience. Because it's not only going to help with a much better customer experience, but it's also going to help with what you just mentioned, Dave, in terms of lowering the onboarding time. And we all know that agent attrition is one of the big factors in the contact center. So coming to the point about how does these technologies leverage with agent assist, I think it's again combination of using the right model. Let's just start with simple thing. How do we build the information what agents need at their fingertips to help solve customer queries? All contact center companies have knowledge management systems, have FAQs built in. With the correct combination of generative AI and knowledge AI, what's easily possible is really using these FAQs of structured and unstructured data and providing automatic answer generation for those FAQs at the right time. So now when a customer calls in, the agent is able to get the most relevant information right at their fingertips to help drive a much better customer experience and also a better agent performance. I think that's number one. Second thing is it's about truly using but what does an agent know who the customer is and what's their emotion and sentiment of the call? Again, here is where understanding the intent of the customer, understanding who the customer is, what is their true emotion, and then providing that to the agent via the desktop alerts is going to help drive that much better experience, and then they can leverage the right knowledge management systems to drive it further. And the last thing we talked about, obviously, is the whole aspect around the summarization and promises. I think we just beat the topic right now. But using all of this combination of all of these technologies, both real-time in-call assist with after-call work summarization, is what is going to drive a holistic agent assist solution, which will drive much better business outcomes for the enterprise.
Matt, anything you want to throw on top of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about how customers want proactive, personalized communication. We need to be bringing that to agents as well, right? A good agent experience creates good customer experience. That's the reality. So VJ, put a pretty powerful note out there. What these tools are doing is pushing information to agents. Think about how agents had traditionally have worked. It's try to go into 5 different places and search and dig for what you're looking for. So let's talk about some other tangible benefits of those tools. So companies that employ agent assist tools have a 20% reduction in agent turnover. Anybody who runs a contact center, I'd argue at my time running contact centers, my most important asset was actually tribal knowledge. So reducing that agent turnover helps me retain more of that tribal knowledge. 50% reduction in training time. 60% reduction in time agents spend searching for information, which means less frustration for them and less frustration for your customers. The other thing that we're doing, VJ, you hit the nail on the head there. You said, a lot of what we do when we come in is say, what are the things we can automate or what are the things that we can shift to self-service? But by doing that, what are we doing? We're leaving the more and harder, more complex work for the agents. It used to be, only X% of the things were the most sophisticated problems they had to deal with. But by moving more to this self-service model, now a bigger part of their day is spent on these most sophisticated problems. So what happens? We want to create good, positive emotions. Dave mentioned that. And what was it? 28 positive emotions for every 1 negative. By bringing in agent assist tools, we're lightening the cognitive load on agents. We're decreasing their frustration. Well, what's naturally going to happen? Those soft skills that we spend so much time seeking and hiring for, those are going to come to the forefront now. We're freeing them from their burden so that those soft skills can shine. So that's why Agent Assist is such a powerful tool and really something everybody should be considering for any of their contact center or really anybody who's customer facing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think, and we touch on this a little bit too. The time to do nothing is over. You have to start thinking about a plan and to go forward. And I'm going to throw out, because VJ just touched on it, something I consider to be a table stakes item. Customer identification. Is there anything more frustrating than having to re-explain who you are? Who's Waldo versus where's Waldo, I guess, in my case. Like, I've put in my info, I've put in my account number or my loyalty number or my phone number, and they don't know who I am. And I think it's going to become one of those table stakes items that customers are going to expect. You know who I am, you know why I'm likely calling, and you're ready to talk to me about the thing I'm likely calling about. Because people generally only engage with the brand for one of 2 reasons: to buy more stuff or to complain, or have a return, make a change, make a difference. So and the stakes are really high for those of you in the audience. Zendesk did a survey last year. 61% of customers will defect to a different brand over 1 bad experience. It jumps to almost 80% on a second bad experience. You are going to lose customers if they don't like the way they get to interact with your brand. So in that vein, again, I'll kick it to you, Matt. This is not about making people afraid, but it's about getting them to start thinking about what are some more of those table stakes items. Customer identification, agent empowerment are 2 we talked about. What are the things? and again, both of you have touched on this. I say it all the time. Your customers are not comparing you to your competitors. They are comparing you to the frictionless experiences they are enjoying elsewhere. How easy is it to get an Uber sent to your house? How easy does Amazon make it to purchase yet another unnecessary thing that you can't believe you ordered? But they're making it simple. What are the things that people need to be doing from a just straight table stakes perspective in order to stay in this game and continue building and evolving that?
Well, number one, Dave, you know I love my statistics, so thanks for throwing some of those out. Convenience is one of the strongest indicators of a customer's willingness to pay more. So 70% of respondents indicate they'd pay more if they knew they'd have a convenient experience. So we have to put the convenience at the center of much of what we're doing. So what does that mean? We already talked about some of it, right? Less time agents searching for information, empowered agents, right? That can take action in real time. And these what are some of the, VJ hit on it. They have next best action tools, right? So now, there's so much control, command and control around contact centers of we can't let agents do things because they might make mistakes, right? When you put better systems in place, you're going to free them to have more latitude and authority to do some of those things. The other thing I would say as well is self-service. You got to do it, man. Like this is a have to have option. AWS, we've talked about them quite a bit with our friends over at Amazon. They did an interesting survey where 74% of respondents are likely to spend more with brands that avoid letting them avoid contacting a live agent. And there's strong use cases there that they have preference for. Example, the check and order status, 3x preference to use an automated tool over talking to a person. But there's still strong use cases where they want to talk to a person, like reporting identity theft or fraud. They'd much rather talk to a person to do that, right? So we talked about how it's much more complex to do what we do today. The reality is we have to let people choose their own adventure. It's no longer good enough to say, here's the way you do something. We have to offer them an array of ways to accomplish a task and to take that account. And that's why much of what we talk about is customer journey mapping is the foundation for all of this. You need to be identifying pain points in that journey, but more importantly, you need to be identifying places where you're forcing people to interact in a way they prefer not to. Those are the things that create negative emotions. So I would say convenience is at the center, and it is now a table stake, and offering a buffet of ways to do things, I think, is also becoming table stakes as well.
BJ, anything to add to that? Like, what are the, if you don't have it today, you might already be in trouble, table stakes items that contact center leaders should be thinking about?
I would say a lot of things what we just talked about, right? Having the basic ability to understand who your customer is, why are they calling, what is their intent, and also what's their emotion, and then guiding your agents accordingly. I think that's basic table stakes. Definitely not having the ability to understand and provide the analytics what's required is also table stakes. Because if you really don't know what's happening in your contact center, how are you then going to optimize it for the future? I think that's important. One area we really never hit upon in the entire conversation is using AI for the analytics piece. Are you just going to go and analyze what your business analysts have said? Hey, we need to go analyze these specific conversations, or are you going to analyze 100% of your calls and get unsupervised learning of topics which are coming up in your contact center, which you're not having a business rule originally for? I think that's important because that can be the proactive analytics and the actionable insights what you can get to optimize your contact center in real time. I would say the third thing, which should become table stakes, is the simple thing about summarization. I think agent after call summary is a low-hanging fruit for contact centers. Automating that can realize immediate business results, whether it's lowering the average handle time, whether it's improving the accuracies and other efficiency metrics, what contact centers measure themselves on. I would say those would be the key things which I think are really becoming table stakes, and contact centers need to move fast to accomplish this table stakes.
Awesome.
And let me drive down on one thing, because VJ mentioned it, but these are things you can't talk about enough, which is sentiment analysis and real-time sentiment analysis in the contact center. We talked about journey mapping. A lot of that is measuring frustration. But the way we do it today is a small subset of people is the reality, right? So imagine having the ability at every part of your journey to understand the collective frustration level of people as they go through that process and to act upon it. I mean, you cannot say enough about the ability to do that in real time today, but also the ability to go back and not look at what a small subset of people are saying, or not look at what they say versus what they're actually feeling in the moment, but to know precisely what all your customers are feeling, thinking as they go through that journey, to ferret out those points of frustration, which again, I'm going to go back to that statistic one more time. It's so powerful. 28 positive emotions to every negative is the benchmark. And you can see very clearly with these tools where those negative emotions are happening in that journey.
That's a great one, Matt, and I'm going to sort of tie that into the first question because I think it's pretty relevant. But I will say, based on a lot of experience with a lot of centers, from Eclipse's perspective, we find the average amount of analysis being done on interactions with customers is in the 2 to 3% range. It tends to be very random in nature. Once in a while, something will get flagged if it's a truly like hostile interaction with, anger or cursing. But what Matt's talking about here is a world where all of the interactions are being monitored all of the time, and even for subtle things like sarcasm, because 3 years ago an AI would hear, "Oh, that's great," and say, "Oh, that's good." It thinks it's great. And now the AI would pick up the sarcasm and be like, "No, that isn't so great." So we're really advancing with the ability to monitor things, and then to Matt's point, make adjustments to that client's journey if we're seeing universal frustration at certain points in it. I'm going to take this question from Bill, and I love it because you talked about more emotion, more empathy, and interactions. Makes sense on a telephone call or a video situation like we have here. Does that not apply to purely digital interactions like chat or SMS or other tools like that? How is it even a thing to have empathy in an SMS? Matt, you want to take a stab at that?
That's a great question. And I think it all starts with, I'll go back to a point VJ has made here more than once, which is having the data needed to create the right level of personalization. That is the key to creating emotion in digital transactions. We as humans have a need to feel known. I mean, if you think back in your own life, anytime you felt like somebody, and they really know me, they bought me the best gift because they really know me, man. What does that say when you feel like somebody knows you, historically? It means they care about you. They've taken the time to learn about you. They've created a level of importance about your relationship as opposed to others. The reality is these AI tools can allow us to kind of take a short circuit path to doing those same things, right? I'm giving you timely information. I'm giving you personalized information. I'm giving you information that shows I understand why you do things. I'm giving you information that shows I understand the way you've interacted with me previously and maybe what the next step of that interaction can be. All of that can happen in a digital world, right? The only thing you're losing is tone of voice, right? The smile through the phone, you're losing some of that. But I think you can make up for a lot of that through radical personalization in that process.
Awesome. Yeah, VJ, anything to add on making the digital more human, more empathetic?
I would say generative AI can really help with that, making it more human. I think it's about ensuring that you're not talking with a robot. And I think that's where one of our Unifor's brand message right now is AI with a human touch. And that's going to be, what we're trying to emphasize is you have to humanize conversations. You've got to understand who the customer is. Are they typing, in curt sentences, or are they really, asking for specific responses? And then providing the right response and not treating them like a robot. And I think that's going to help. So I think it's about combination of, truly understanding the situation, the value of the journey, and then I would say not really focusing exclusively on call deflection. I know we all get stuck into the digital transaction as a call deflection mechanism, but there are certain times that you do have to engage with an agent. It could be a chat agent, that's okay. So long as you're able to humanize those interactions, I think that's what is going to drive a much better experience and outcome going forward.
Yeah, and obviously as the technology continues to advance, it's astounding to me because things that were said, as if they were the ultimate truths of the universe a couple of years ago. A machine will never be able to mimic or replicate human empathy. Well, we're starting to actually see some of the machines showing empathy and scoring as well as an average agent on some of that compassionate response. So the models continue to get better, and ultimately, I think this is a story of humans and the AI working alongside one another to make sure that the client is getting the best experience. And in that vein, I want to pivot to and Matt, I'm gonna watch you sort of rubbing your hands here. Matt's favorite topic, and one of our ones, it's not a traditional contact center metric, but we believe at Eclipse it's going to become one of the most talked about and important ones: customer effort score. Again, I'm going to my stat sheet here because this one is mind-boggling, and this is all from Gartner, by the way, most of it. 96% of customers with high effort service interaction are disloyal, compared to only 9% with low effort interaction. 94% of customers going through effortless experience to work with your brand are likely to repurchase versus 4% who had a hard time. 81% of customers going through a high level of effort are likely to share their bad experience with others versus 1% who are happy about the effortless interaction. And can I pause on that and say that stinks? Like, we made it really great and no one's going to tell anybody, but they will tell people when they're not happy. And then all of that statistics, this one's from Qualtrics, Matt. Only 17% of contact center leaders are using CES as a core metric. People are not even looking at or measuring the effort their customers go through to work with their brand. I'm going to let you have at it from here because I know this one's real at the core of your belief system here.
Well, let's go back to the Forrester CX Index. It asks three things, or measured three things: ease, effectiveness, and emotion. Let's talk about the default measure, which, by the way, 2/3 of Fortune 1000 companies use Net Promoter Score. Does it measure any of those? No. It measures the likelihood that you may do something. It does not measure whether your experience was convenient. It does not measure whether your experience was easy. It does not measure whether your experience was effective. Customer effort score directly measures at least two of those threes, and depending on how you implement it, it can measure emotion as well. The other thing I would say, Dave, you hit on some great stats. Here's another one that absolutely kind of blew my mind. A Cornerstone Advisors, they did a survey of 2,506 US consumers. Don't ask me why the extra 6. I don't know why they didn't stop at 2,500, but they threw those extra 6 in there. And they found effectively zero correlation between NPS scores and customers actually making a referral to their family and friends, and more importantly, whether they actually added products and services to your companies. So, like, for example, in baking, Capital One had the highest actual referrals, but the third lowest NPS scores of the 8 banks measured. Citibank had a negative NPS score, but they came in dead last of everybody. Yet their customers added products at the third highest rate of the 8. So we're measuring things, and Vijay hit this earlier, right? We don't measure the right things, or we're not measuring enough of the things during the process. So I would argue, I'm not saying throw NPS out. I don't want to go that far, but customer effort score is going to give you the insight you need when you measure. The other thing I'd say about NPS that's problematic is it's typically measured on a cadence, quarterly or however you may do it. What we never know is when that NPS changes, what caused it, right? So we wake up one day and go, hey, we went from somebody who's positive to passive to a detractor. And we've lost track of what the heck happened, right? Where customer effort score, we can measure that at the end of occurrences in that customer journey and have a much more clear understanding of where frustration is actually occurring, where happiness is actually occurring, and not be taken by surprise when we do see a defection from one of our customers.
VJ, can you take that and tie it to creating actionable intelligence out of those things we're measuring? Because you touched on that at the outset, and I definitely want to hit on that point today.
Sure, absolutely. I think Matt brought up a good point. A lot of times we measure NPS after we have resolved an issue. Obviously, the NPS is going to go up, right? We never really measure, in terms of what the customer detractor score is. I think that's a bigger point. And that definitely, I do agree 100% that measuring the customer effort score is very important. I think the whole objective is how do we drive frictionless experiences? And I think that's what companies need to be measuring. Are we truly driving frictionless experiences for our customers? Because let's be real, right? We're all very impatient in today's world. We don't spend more than 90 seconds on Netflix trying to find a movie to watch. We want to find it right then and there. If not, we switch our channels. So yeah, so Dave, to your question about the actionable insights. Yeah, I think a lot of times, a couple of things, right? So every company does quality management and measure the analytics, but are they truly sampling 100% of the interactions or just a small subset? Because when you're really sampling a small subset, you're not going to get the right actionable intelligence. And with the advantage of AI, we can truly basically measure the customer effort and the customer experience across 100% of the interactions, whether it's the digital interactions or the voice interactions. I think that's the number one start. Second thing I think I briefly touched upon was a lot of times companies have predetermined rules in terms of what they want to measure based on their past historical trends. I think with today's advantage of AI, I think it's possible to go beyond. Let's take an example. I'm always going to measure the number of cancellations I get in and the number of technical support calls I get in and how my agents and customers did on those interactions. What if there is one particular month, there is an uptick in terms of billing disputes, or there's an uptick in terms of some other call, which is really impacting the customer effort and the NPS? Are you getting a proactive notification that is something which you have to start measuring, and here is the impact on customer experience? I think that's where AI can really help, really providing that unsupervised learning, providing the topics which can be discovered based on the sampling of calls, and then using that to optimize and improve your agent and customer performance. I think that's where the true sauce in. And that goes back to the big data you're capturing and the AI technologies you have, which you can apply on that data to get the insights, what you need to drive the better experience into the future.
I think VJ hit on something powerful there. The other thing that's happening is we're lowering the time to insight and the time between insight and action and course correction.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, you may be changing things quarterly or annually, whatever it is, right? These new tools really allow you to get almost real-time guidance and allow you also to, with Agent Assist, for example, make real-time course corrections to address those issues. And I think that's something that's very important to note as well.
Gonna jump to a question from Anne here. And boy, this is spot on for the trick or treat nature of the webinar topic here. I'm seeing a ton and hearing anecdote about AI gone wrong, implemented wrong, causing reputational and brand damage, frankly. How do I protect my company's brand and reputation when I'm doing this? This is a sort of a brave new frontier, Matt. How do I make sure that I have appropriate protection before I unleash, a model that frankly I may not have trained out into my customer environment? What do I do to make sure we're staying safe?
Yeah, I mean, the reputational risks are real right now. And, a lot of it has been this rush to implement. One kind of crossed my path here this week that blew my mind. Our friends over at OpenAI are being sued right now for libel because in two different instances, they were saying people had committed crimes that they had not committed. And one of them was a mayoral candidate in Australia. So I think the first step is pick the right tools. Everybody's, I've heard a lot of people come to us and say, we got to put ChatGPT in. Why? What are you trying to accomplish? Well, my boss, read about it and he really wants to make sure we're not falling behind. We need ChatGPT. No, that's not the reason to do anything, right? The reason is to better service our customers. So I would say, and the other thing you got to be careful of is because OpenAI, ChatGPT, they sell access to their APIs, as we all know. It's very easy now for somebody to spin up something on the front end of their APIs and go out there and say, hey, we got this great ChatGPT solution for chatbots. Really think about the people you're doing business with, the tools you're purchasing and buying, and make sure they have a suite of protections built into them. That's the number one question you should be asking, right? Much of the challenges we've seen with ChatGPT, where there's been reputational harm, are caused by what are called hallucinations. Hallucinations are a function of transformer models, which is the T in ChatGPT. But there are things you can do to minimize those, but it means that companies need to be doing more than just deploying a large language model. They need to be deploying tools on top of that to create those appropriate protections, make sure they're training them on your data appropriately, make sure that you're putting them in effectively, and also help you kind of religiously test those tools prior to implementation. So I think that's the key, is be very mindful right now. There's Dave and I, in our business, we get this all the time. We went to a big event within our industry not too long ago. And I think we counted, there were somewhere around 1,000 companies there with their ChatGPT generative AI tools. And they're more and more every day. I get somebody, hey, you should look at our tool. You should look at our tool. You're seeing a lot of these people just pop up overnight. Be very careful and mindful of who you're doing business with, I think, is the first start there into making sure you've got the right protections.
And VJ, from a Unifor perspective, what are you doing to put guardrails in place to make sure that the client's brand reputation are at the forefront and being protected?
I think that's a great question. I think, and a very important one for companies to think about, especially with generative AI, is what are some of the guardrails? And at Unifor, it really comes down to three things. We're really trying to emphasize that the enterprises we work with, the companies we work with, have complete data sovereignty and privacy of their data. We are not going to be exposing those to public domains. We're not going to be exposing those to the public frameworks to kind of really help put the guardrails. Second is, from an enterprise context, is really about what can truly companies ask, and then what are the necessary rules we're putting, the rules we're putting in place. So, the generative AI is not going out of the box. I think that's another kind of important guardrail we're focusing on. And the third, but not the least, is the last but not the least, I would say, is that we are having our own, combination of large language models, which specifically focuses on the enterprise context and has the data sovereignty and privacy, which enterprises can leverage. So that's a natural guardrail using our models, which we're trying to drive better business behavior, better business results and outcomes.
We're coming up against the end of time. I could sit and talk with you both all day about this stuff because it's endlessly fascinating. But I'm going to ask for a quick closing thought, and I'll sort of start with mine on the where do I start question, because I think a lot of folks are sitting in webinars like this, reading articles, talking to peers. It's my belief that the best place to start is that simple exercise of mapping out your customer journey through all of the different channels, either doing it yourself or working with a firm like ours to sort of sit alongside you and find that map and build it. VJ, where do you think somebody should start if they're just sitting here today, legacy technology, old platforms? They know they need to start. They know they need to do something. What's the entry point for, I'm going to start the journey of 1,000 miles with the first step?
I would say I'm going to give a slightly I would say unconventional answer. I would say let's first get the data. There are ways today where you can still have complete control of your data, but just stream it across to a platform like Unifor's to really get the intent and the insights of what's truly happening in your environment. So we can build out these conversation clusters and use the AI-based intent mining to understand all the different intents of the customer journeys in your environment. I think from there, once we have that identification, we are actually totally open with the company, with the customers to start anywhere. Do you want to really go after a table stakes use case like after call work? Absolutely. Agent after call work summarization? Absolutely. We can start there. Or do you think that it's important to improve your self-service automation rates because it's an easy ROI to show to your business, and also improve the the ROI from a total from lowering a cost standpoint? I think it's possible over there as well. But the advantage of having the data and the conversation clusters and the AI-based intent mining helps you make more informed decisions in terms of how you want to go forward. And that's where we would like to start. And I think that's what I would really recommend, because that can help form the right AI blueprint, what companies really crave for as they're going forward. So it's a crawl, walk, run approach. Let's crawl by first getting the data within your enterprise. You own the data. Let's truly understand what's the different intents, how the conversations are working. Let's then walk towards the first use case you want to solve, which will drive the best business outcome. It could be self-service. It could be the agent assist. Really, it depends upon where you are as a company. And the last, let's run with then going and automating all the other use cases and going and getting the bills and vessels in terms of complete transaction-oriented conversations rather than just answer generation conversations.
Awesome. And Matt, what would you like to add in terms of where's a rational and logical place to start?
Well, I think the first thing is make sure you have the right measures in place today around customer success or customer experience, because the reality is you roll these tools out, how do you know if they're additive or negative to the process, right? The only way to know that is to understand how you rate today around things like NPS, CSAT, customer effort score. All those things are important. So if you don't have those foundational measures today, it's going to be very difficult to bring these tools in and understand their impact. The other thing I'd say as well is start with the right goals, understand what those really are. Your goals should service your customer. Your goals should service your agents. If your goal is simply, hey, we want to get rid of all our agents and replace them with chatbots, you're likely going to fail, and we've seen that. And I can point people to specific instances where that's created great reputational harm to companies. So again, I think the focus always should be, how do we use these tools to make our humans more human? How do we use these tools to let our agent soft skills shines? But more importantly, how do we use these tools to create those 28 positive emotions for every negative one that we create, which is now the benchmark or the hallmark for elite brands.
Awesome. Vijay, Matt, thank you for all of the wisdom and input today. This was a lot of fun. This concludes our webinar for today. Recording will be available and will be sent out to all of you who've attended. So please feel free to share with friends and coworkers. Everybody have a safe and happy Halloween. Full-size candy bars, always appreciated for anybody in a Waldo costume here as well. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you for your time and attention and for attending our webinar today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thank you.